So good evening. I'll be starting in 8 o'clock on today's topic. It's actually quite close to my heart. This is related to estate administration and also taxation. 咁我哋就8點鐘開始啦 ，OK？ 各位觀眾，我哋等多2分鐘啦。I guess we're good to go at 8 o'clock. Okay, today's topic is related to tax treatment for deceased. Deceased means all those who pass away. But then if they owe money to the income tax, what happened then? What happened, let's say, to the beneficiary or the person closest to the deceased? What should they then do? So, okay, before, I think previously I have 2 talks, but I didn't lay down actually what I'm gonna talk about, so that maybe those who is watching replay and etc., they can actually just go to that particular section and then just rewatch what I've mentioned, right? So objective for today's webinar, there are a few so that you all understand. For those that feel like the thing that I'm talking is a bit too deep, I think you can rewatch this webinar because I actually spent like 2 weeks in researching on all the points here. So firstly, I would be analyzing who will be liable to pay taxes for the deceased. Of course, here I mentioned few things, the executor, administrator, and there's another third entity that I think you all wouldn't have heard it before, or even if you have heard it, there may be a minority of you have heard it. It's called legal representative. And this one in the law, we call it executor de tort. So this one is something very new for you all to know. Okay, then I'm going to go into one case study because so far in Malaysia, for reported cases on legal representative who is liable to pay for deceased tax, right, the income tax, there's only one reported case. Okay, I think the rest, perhaps LHDN didn't take any action, or the deceased representative, like the executor or administrator, they just go and pay. And then thirdly, we analyze how long can LHDN go after you if you are your, deceased legal representative. How long they can come after you, there must be a timeline. It cannot be after 20 years, your family member passed away. Suddenly LHDN send you a notice of assessment. It wouldn't be fair to you, right? So in law, this is what we call the limitation period. So this is linked to sub 4 as well. Okay, number 5. This is something very practical because I also learned it. This is actually not law, It's something that I believe what the tax agent has been doing, submitting the forms. So we'll be analyzing what are the forms that the legal representative for the deceased, that they need to submit certain forms under LHDN. So I'll be sharing this form and then the tips and tricks on how you can fill it up. Okay, number 7, what if you can't determine the income of the deceased, right? Your family member might pass away, but they never share you how much they've earned, right? Maybe they've received rental income, maybe they have other type of income. When suddenly you receive a notice of assessment, you are shocked because you suddenly realize your family member who passed away suddenly has such a huge income. Okay, so but the question later we'll analyze further into this topic because it's actually quite interesting. Okay, number 8 is how do you minimize then the tax payment for the deceased income tax? Because if you understand, if you have a will, you go to the court and apply for a probate. If you die intestate, means without a will, you go to apply for a letters of administration. Let's say the deceased still have outstanding income tax, right? If you are able to save the amount of income tax this deceased is going to pay, or you're going to pay on behalf of the deceased, right, to the LHDN or the taxman, the remaining outstanding at the end of the day is the amount that is going to be redistributed back to the beneficiary. So you can save this amount, means if you are the beneficiary, you can get extra out from the deceased monies or asset. Then there will be some, I think, very common question on when dead people pass away, when they sell their property and all that, there will be some discussion on RPGT and stamp duty. So there are a few case studies as well here. And all these case studies is actually real life case study that I personally have handled before. And I've actually make it into today's case study. But don't worry, the identity of the parties are being, it will be anonymous. So all of these are real life example that I am going to share with you all. And number 10 is on the sale of deceased asset. So it's something that link to the end, what will happen to the deceased asset. Let's say there are some people doesn't want to inherit, or they decided, we want to go against the wishes of the death under the will. So they might want to sell it because, family member fight and all that. Then they come to a solution. Let's sell this property to somebody else. We'll get the proceed and we'll split it among family members. All right. So then if you have any Q&A, then feel free, if you are shy, just put in the comment box there. Then when I read it, I can analyze for you. So let's go to the first subtopic here. So understand the basic thing about after death. After that, right, after the deceased pass away, after they have died, the closest person to the deceased, which means the executor, they will go to the court and apply for a probate order in the event there's a will. In the absence of a will, means this testator is the person who drafted the will, right? Okay. In the absence of a will, means you do not have a will. You follow the government's will. What does it mean? It means that you follow the Distribution Act. So under Section 6 of the Distribution Act, if you do not have a will, the distribution of the asset of the deceased will be distributed in accordance with Section 6 of the Distribution Act. So the closest person that will get inheritance, to inherit the assets from the deceased, are what the law deemed the closest person. It will be the children of the deceased, the wife and the parents. And we always go back to the main principle. Children will always get the most. So you only left with wife and children. Children get 2/3 and wife get 1/3 of the deceased asset. If you have parents involved, then we change the equation to quarter. So the children would get 2/4, parents 1/4, and wife 1/4. In the absence of every parties or the actors here, right, parents pass away, no wife, no children. That's where the sibling come into the picture. So that's why last week actually I talked about a case on Harry's War. It's actually a war among siblings when the sister passed away. So the sister is actually, in that case itself, is a Muslim and passed away without any husband, children. So the siblings are then fighting for the assets and all that. But today we're talking more on that. These are the usual timeline: probate, LA. If you have a will, then we go to the court and apply for probate. Usually it takes 3 months to 6 months. But if all your assets are clear enough, then less than 3 months is possible. The quickest one I get is 1.5 months to 2 months. Depends on the court as well. And the letter of administration, it takes way longer than probate. Why? Because there are actually 3 stages of application that we have to go through. Firstly, we have to get the court to appoint an administrator. That's why we have this application called Application to Appoint an Administrator, LA. Once you got the LA, the court order only state who becomes the administrator of the deceased asset. Secondly, then you have to apply for a dispensation of surety, which means even though you are appointed as the administrator, the law wants you to pay a sum of bond or guarantee because they're afraid that you run away with the deceased asset, right? But let's say in a situation where your family member passed away and you apply for this LA, then the court would also consider the fact that you are a close family member. They would allow you to apply for this dispensation of surety, which means we waive that requirement of you having to pay, let's say, the asset worth 500K. Then we waive you the requirement to pay 500K to the court with this court order. So there are two court orders here involved. And the last one is actually distribution order. At the same time, you also have to ask a question to the executor, whether you are executing this, the administrator, whether you are performing this action to sell or you want to distribute. So we have to ask this question very clearly. If you want to distribute the asset of the deceased under the Distribution Act, right, then we as lawyer, we apply for a distribution order. But let's say the administrator feels that it is in the best interest to sell off this asset and that proceed to be distributed to the beneficiary, right, then we'll apply for an order for sale. So in this case, they're actually two different. So you can think of step 1, step 2. Then when you go to step 3, you have 3A and 3B. 3A is you apply for distribution order to distribute the asset to the beneficiary. And or 3B, either you sell it. Sell means you direct from the administrator holding that property, we call it transmission, then you sell it to subsequent buyer. All right, here comes today's main point that I want to talk about. Okay, who is liable for the taxes of the death? It's actually not the beneficiary, but it will be the beneficiary being liable to the tax of the death if the beneficiary is also the executor. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast. So understand these three colored people, right? The first one is executor. So once you apply to the court, right, and the court issued or granted that probate order, under the law, you are already someone considered close enough to the deceased. You're considered executor. You know, you take action on behalf of the death, right? And then the second person, administrator, is without will. And the third one, in the event you do not have probate, neither do you have letters of administration. Okay, you are unaware that you have to apply on all these matters, and the asset of the deceased is being left hanging there. That's why you see in the news, right? There's a lot of unclaimed money that the Malaysian government say that, you know, all of these people, they didn't claim this money. You know, all of this money is actually due to the fact that no one is applying for the court order, like the probate LA, to unfreeze the asset of the deceased. I give you a scenario. Let's say someone passed away. Maybe family member thinks that they can withdraw the money straight away from the bank account of the deceased. But the reality is that once a death certificate is being issued by the Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara, right, the deceased asset will be frozen, which means that you go to the bank reject you from withdrawing the money because under their record, they know that this bank account holder owner has passed away. And this applies even to a joint account owner account. Let's say A and B pass away. A will also be affected. This is what the trend is going on with all the banks in Malaysia. So what happened in this situation if the so-called legal representative hasn't, or the executor hasn't even go to apply for the probate order or the letters of administration? This one, the law deemed that this person who actually being close to the deceased, right? Let's say this person didn't go to apply for the probate order or LA, but he then helped this deceased person to sign certain letter, let's say in the hospital. Automatically under the law, you become executor de son tort. Executor de son tort means the law under Income Tax Act, I think this one is under Section 74. Okay, they'll consider you as they consider you as someone closest to the deceased. And then if LHDN then wants to take action against you for the unpaid taxes of the deceased, right, they actually can send it to you. All right, based on that document. I'll show you one case study in the Yong Siu Chun case later on to show how this lady become the executor de son tort. Okay, make it very simple. executor descent tort means it can be anybody close to the deceased. Make it simple. This one is actually a Latin word. All right, how can the LHDN take action against you as the executor descent tort or executor or administrator? You can be either 1, 2, 3 here. As long as the deceased income taxes hasn't been settled, they can go to the court and take action under this court order. All right, this is a good example, state case study in 2005. And this case goes all the way, it went up all the way to the federal court. When it means federal court means it is the highest law of the land. No one can go, and it's very rare for the federal court to overturn their decision. It is already the principal law of the land. Unfortunately, the facts of this case is actually a lawyer, so I don't want to name it because I'm also a lawyer, right? So what happened, the lawyer, this one is in one of the big firms, passed away. And even this lawyer doesn't have a will. So what happened is if you don't have a will, then you go under Distribution Act, right? And the closest person is the wife in this case. By right, the wife should have gone to the court and apply for the letters of administration. But I somehow read this case and found out actually the wife did not even apply for the letters of administration. Reason because I think the lawyer quite smart, I think transfer everything to the wife before the lawyer passed away. And then the wife just doesn't want to go and apply for the LA because it's nothing to distribute under the Distribution Act anyway. But the law firm of these lawyers, because the lawyer passed away, being a partner of a law firm, the law firm then pays some gratuity payment to the wife. But and this one becomes what? Income of the deceased. And who receive it? The wife receive it. Okay, so the law then requires that the law firm pay 200K. There's no probate order LA applied. So the wife didn't apply any. So the question becomes whether this 200K received by the wife needs to pay tax or not. So the wife did not pay any tax on this. So the facts of this case shows that the wife actually signed Form B for the deceased. So Form B is a tax return form for this tax partner. So when this lawyer passed away, being a partner, right, someone has to sign. So this wife actually signed the Form B on behalf of the deceased under the wife's name. So this is where the facts that causes this wife to become the executor descent tort. Means a law considered that this lady can be sued for the tax authority to claim back the unpaid income tax of the deceased. All right. Okay, notice of assessment was being sent to the wife, deceased wife. It was sent to the last known address of the deceased wife. This is how the tax authority actually take action. They would issue out notice of assessment, and usually they would send by post. So every time you receive a phone call or whatever from LHDN, those are actually scammers. The correct procedure, we call it the statutory procedure to for LHDN to claim unpaid tax or incorrect tax against taxpayer is by way of sending a post, which is under Section 105. That letter or notice must be sent to the last known address of the taxpayer, in this case, the deceased. And what happened? The tax authority proceed to take a legal proceeding action under Section 103 and 106 in general or simple term. Section 103 is considered once the notice is being issued out, you're considered someone liable under the law to pay the income tax. So under Section 106 as well, LHDN can go to the court and file a civil action against you. So it can be you, it can be your wife, it can be your, if you don't have wife or husband, it can be your parents. If your parents is no more here, it can be your children. If your straight line, your cross line is not here, it can be your siblings if they assisted you in signed documents and all that. All right. So these are the definition under the Income Tax Act, where executor also means, if you look at Section 2 there, other person administering or managing the estate of a deceased person. So the definition under Income Tax Act for executor is actually very wide. The executor meaning it can also means someone who has yet to apply for a probate order, but then they choose to manage the estate of the deceased person. For example, like in this case, Yong Siu Chun. Yong Siu Chun is a wife. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. What happened is, if it being assessed for income tax, then they actually have to pay based on the income tax range here. And this is how the court sue lah. They would actually sue you as wakil kepada harta pusaka. All right, the assessment is final. We're talking right now, this slide is actually about, let's say your close one currently has an undergoing or ongoing tax cases with LHDN. Let's say they have filed an appeal with the Special Commission of Income Tax, and suddenly they pass away, right? But they're still disputing that amount of that or the taxes with a Special Commission of Income Tax or the Dispute Resolution Department of LHDN. So what happened is, you being the executor of the beneficiary, you can actually file a form under this. You can file a form to represent the deceased with LHDN to say that you want to continue the proceeding of the deceased to fight over the disputed debt. So that, let's say, the case win and turn in favor of the deceased taxpayer, you would then get all the money. All right, so it's something for you to ponder. So limitation period usually is 7 years, right? So here is until 7 years, mean you being someone close to the deceased, the executor, the son tort, you have 7 years duty or obligation to keep all the past records of the taxpayer. But these are very practical problem where you can't even find those documents. But even if you can find it, you maybe have limited amount of years that you kept. Maybe you have 2 years, 1 year of the deceased record. The rest, maybe you have put it somewhere. All right, this one is about income tax. This one is about income tax, right? How many years of assessment can LHDN go after? So it's basically 3 years. Yeah, do apologize. Okay, under Section 74 of the Income Tax Act 1967, maximum there are 3 years that LHDN can come after you for the unpaid taxes of the deceased. 3 years mean if the deceased passed away in 2020, the LHDN can only come after you for the unpaid taxes of the deceased for the year 2019, 2020, and 2018. They can't come after you for the unpaid taxes of the deceased in 2017. So only maximum 3 years. If you realize suddenly you receive a Borang J or JA in related to the deceased, right? And then it is related to 2016 or 2017, you can consider to appeal, or you can write into the LHDN to ask them the reason why they are assessing the deceased income tax after 3 years. Unless, all right, there's always exception that the deceased income or deceased himself shows that he had committed act of negligence, or he had certain criminal activity, or the proceeds from criminal activities which led to the LHDN to carry out criminal investigation against a taxpayer. Okay, what should the beneficiary do right in this case? There are a few things that usually I advise. All right, number one, you being the beneficiary or the executor, the son tort, right? You should fully maximize the tax relief of the deceased. Even deceased has to pay income tax. It means that the income tax to be paid, you can also claim the tax relief. And secondly, you must check whether the deceased has overpaid their tax, especially in the case of PCB. When these deceased people, they monthly get their income tax there being deducted a portion of their income and being remitted to LHDN. So you can always claim back for overpaid taxes of the deceased. And number three, you must submit a TP form. So in terms of the procedure, I'll explain in a while, because you actually have to file a CP57 to register for an income tax number for the deceased first. Okay, refund of taxes, section 111. All right, how do you file this TP form? It's like I say, you have to file a CP57 form, and then LHDN would then issue you this letter on the right-hand side here. This they will give you a TP number. So maybe your OG number for those working, right? Or SG for business, or C for business owner and all that. When you die, your income tax number has to have that TP number. So usually this one, I think The person assisting you, they will apply for you, tax agent or lawyers and all that. Okay, CP57 has to be sent in to LHDN. Okay, remember these are small tips for you. Get your persisting person, lawyers or tax agent to show you the CP57 form first, because as you look at the top right hand side here, there's pin 1/2020. Usually LHDN will amend the form. So it can be the latest form of pin 1/2023. So you don't go and send a pin 1/2020. That form may become an invalid form. But usually for deceased taxpayer matter, LHDN would just receive it. It will just acknowledge receipt of this form. Okay, as you understand, this one also applies for living human being like us. The income tax law has really changed a lot. It means that currently, instead of your OG, SG, and all that number, you actually have a TIN number. So you check back in your My Tax there. Actually, this law came into force, I think, like last year or something, or last 2 years. So you would have that TIN number. So for that people, once you've got that TP income tax number, you also have this TP number here. So why is it important? If you fill it up, means that income belongs to the dead people. Okay, what do you fill up in the TP form, right? You have to fill up when did the deceased pass away? And then where did he pass away? Is it in Singapore? Is it in Malaysia? If in Singapore, then that's death cert you have to bring to the JPN and get a confirmation, so that you also update the Malaysian authority that this deceased has passed away somewhere else. I mean, we're talking about Malaysian citizen now. And then you also have to update in the TP form for the date of the probate and LA, or even the land administrator order if your asset is below 500K. So you can go to the land administrator, land office. In Selangor, there are 9. If you have heard of all those Petaling land office, Sepang land office. Okay, this one is not the registrar land office in Shah Alam. So I can't comment on Johor and other places, but as far as I know, my experience tell me that in Selangor there are 9 land offices. So you can actually go for the SEDA application in these 9 land offices as well. All right. Okay, you should key in this tax relief. Okay, we're talking about deceased passed away in January, right? And then usually for individual income tax, you have to submit to the authority by 30th of April, correct? And then this e-filing you have to submit online before 15 May. They extend like 1.5 months for you. So this one, make sure you key in the tax relief and then you claim the tax relief and before you submit. So how you key in all this is basically you have to key in as a Harta Pusaka, who and who, key in the TP number here as well. And then you can submit online. Unfortunately, if you couldn't access the ID and the password for the deceased, then you have to submit manually. Okay, otherwise, Section 77B sub 4, they impose a penalty if you exceeded the timeline here. So don't be shocked if suddenly you receive a Form J or the JA. It's a notice of assessment saying that this deceased, suddenly has to pay an income tax of 21,000, then there's a penalty, and you don't know why this penalty is being imposed, right? So the answer to that is actually there's a late submission, but it's not your fault. It's just circumstances fault. You don't know when he passed away. Maybe he passed away after May, then how? And then the deceased also hasn't submitted tax. So, all right, what if there are really a very big amount of income taxes? You realize that this deceased has been accumulating and he did not declare it. This one applies to a lot of Datuk and Tan Sri. So this is in this coming June, May 2023. Sorry, this one should be 23. All right, until next year, June 2024, within 1 year, you should consider to declare all this income under the Self-Declaration Voluntary Program, SVDP. It means that you restart your income or your deceased income so that as the beneficiary, you can inherit or you can get that deceased income by saving on the penalty imposed later. You do not want to underreport or wrongly report the income, you can submit all this TP form. But once the LHDN, they check and verify, actually you report 30,000. This is maybe have received 100K, and you know that you went and reported, submit incorrect return to the LHDN. Then what happened? You would be liable to pay that penalty later. So my advice to you is go for this SVDP in June, because it's really beneficial. And you can declare in the tax form to get tax exemption. All right, under Section 83, where an individual under his employment dies, the employer shall not less than 30 days, right? This one is employer's duty. You realize your employee passed away, you also have 30 days to report to LHDN on the deceased passing away with all the evidence like death cert and all that. So that under your record, this employee has considered been cease of practice in your company. So for private sector, you can consider to submit this CP22 capital A. And if it is a government sector, you can submit the CP22 capital B. All right, now we come to the first scenario where we reach the last stage. In probate order, I think you can usually take the probate order and transfer that property to the beneficiary. This one will be considered no gain, no loss. So you don't need to pay any RPGT. And for income tax, there's also exemption under item 32I of the first schedule of the Stamp Act. So this one you also pay 10 ringgit. But in the letters of administration situation, usually there'll be a lot of people in the family member who has chosen to renounce their rights, right? This is the one that causes trouble, where LHDN come and tax you because they consider when you renounce your rights under the Distribution Act, you're giving away your property that you're going to inherit to your other half by way of gift. And by way of gift, they will tax you based on the normal transfer, which means you have to pay a full stamp duty. So there is also a need for the executor to do a transmission process, so that under the title, the name of the executor can be registered as the pemegang amanah, record trustee. So this is there need to be a transmission form filled up, and then it has to be presented to the land office. So once they want to sell this or transfer it to the beneficiary, the executor would need to submit the RPGT return form. We call it CKHC 1A, and then the beneficiary would have to submit the CKHT 2A after they have received the property. Okay, so this one is actually the example of a land title here. So I've actually covered up the name and all that. But once the transmission process has been done, right, what appears is that your name, your IC sebagai pemegang kuasa probate executor. So let me just highlight here. So order for sale is different from distribution order. It means that at the end of the stage, once a probate order has been granted, the executor has been instructed under the wills to sell the property and then to split the proceed among the beneficiary. Or in the situation of a letters of administration, maybe all the beneficiary under Section 6 of the Distribution Act renounce their rights. So they agree to have these properties being sold to a third party. So assuming the original property is deemed 400K, right? And then they got an order for sale, they found a buyer, and they want to sell it for 500K, they have made 100K here. So for an order for sale situation, there is a requirement to pay RPGT. Okay. And also the stamp duty to be borne by the buyer is a full stamp duty. All right, these are the more scenario 3 is also to show the transmission to an administrator as well, not just the executor. And then in this situation, when you want to have an order for sale, right, you can also consider to apply for a developer's direct transfer. Let's say the title is under master title, so that the buyer can then bear the stamp duty. All right, I think that's all for all. I think today's sharing is quite comprehensive. I do appreciate those who attend and watch this. All right. So all of this, I'll be recording it and then I'll put it up in the video sections and